So it's really a kind of an ancient Greek invention in the West anyway, that you could actually think of everything as just the motion of atoms, and that things are actually made of matter. The four elements, water, I mean, these are different ideas, atomism versus the four elements, but they're both the reductionist ideas where you're trying to reduce all phenomena to certain categories. On the other hand, you had Aristotle, was basically the first biologist, if you want, who believed in what we call teleology. Teleo meaning the purpose. He means everything happens for a purpose. It's not randomly moving atoms, but things are there because there's a purpose for it. Then you had medicine, which was more reductionist again, even though they believed in all kinds of spirits, the ancient physicians, but they really were trying to analyze. They dissected animals, they looked inside, they tried to figure out how things work. Then you have Christianity to medieval times, which things swung back. It's more like God just ordained things, and so it's more a holism thing. Renaissance is more complicated. You have Paracelsus, which was the famous physician who was an alchemist, but he also believed that chemistry has something to do with life. So in that sense, he had some reductionist ideas, although some of his ideas are clearly crazy today. But and then you have the scientific revolution and enlightenment, which was a flowering of reductionism. Harvey explained, was the first one to explain the blood circulation. Descartes, believed that animals are just machines. Lametrie, maybe people don't know that much, but he's kind of like the ultimate expression of this whole period, who wrote a book called L'Homme Machine, meaning the human is a machine. So he just went one step further than Descartes. Descartes kind of stopped short of the human mind. He said like they have the dualism thing where the human body may be a machine like an animal, but the mind can never be. That's something beyond. And Lametrie said like, why stop there? The whole thing is just a machine. That's it. But these mechanists that they compared human bodies to clockwork or something. That's obviously clearly ridiculous too, because clocks don't have little clock babies, and they don't evolve, and they don't eat, and you have to rewind them yourself. They don't rewind themselves. They don't walk around and change their behavior or do anything interesting like living beings do. So people started realizing at the end of this period that this really didn't work very well. So holism came back. So Kant, for example, wrote about, Immanuel Kant wrote about that this, all this stuff doesn't make any sense. Others went further, Schelling and those kind of philosophers almost went back to animism, thinking about a world soul and all that kind of stuff. And then you had the teleologist, biologist in Germany, maybe a bit more scientific teleology, whereas in Britain it maybe was a bit more religious based. And they were really good scientists. That they founded in theology, developmental biology, all kinds of things. But they believed in vital forces. So they believed there's a special force in life that controls all this thing. And the one person that's credited with getting rid of that is Hermann von Helmholtz. This was a physicist, and he showed that he basically he didn't really prove the law of energy conservation because it wasn't really there. There was already Joule and Mayer and all the other people just a few years earlier. But he wrote it down in a very nice way, and he said like, all energies can be converted into each other, and that applies to living things too. And there is no other vital force there, because if there were a special vital force, we would have to have some kind of an energy signature, and there's no such evidence for any such thing. And he did a bunch of experiments on mussels, frog legs, just like Galvani, and he said, no evidence for this such a thing. Everything happens within the energy budget of what the animals eat and what they excrete, and the heat that they radiate. That's it. There's nothing else. So he got rid of the vital forces, and then the only thing left was this whole purpose business, of which most people would say Darwin pretty much got rid of. So that was kind of reductionism came back in a sense. And where are we now? So I'm going to talk a little bit more where are we now. So I would say molecular biology is very reductionist for the most part. Evolution, interestingly, because Darwin got rid of some of that stuff that's part of holism, is now part of more like a holistic view again, because evolution has certain elements in there which could definitely not be reduced to physics, and we'll talk about that. And that's basically Ernst Mayer's point. That's his point, that there are certain things in evolution historical accidents and stuff like that. You cannot predict a human being from appearing on a planet by physics. It's just so, you know. So I want to talk about that a little bit more. Just to go back a few sayings, there's the ancient one. This is from Aristotle's The Anima. Democritus says that atoms, owing to their ceaseless movements, draw the body after them and so produce it movements. We may object that it's not in this phase that the soul appears to originate motion in animals. This through intentional process of thinking. So this is the whole difference, right? It's the gulf, you know, mindless atoms milling around and thought, right? So that's a huge chasm, right? Here in the Enlightenment, sometimes things were a little bit more complicated. Here's Lametrie, I mentioned before. He said, why would it be absurd to believe that there exist physical causes for everything that has been made, causes that govern and interlink the whole series of events in this vast universe with such necessity that nothing that happens could have not happened? And that it is our absolute incurable ignorance of these causes that has made us resort to a God. Thus, destroying chance isn't proving the existence of a supreme being, for there may be something that is neither chance nor God, namely nature. So he believed in a clockwork universe, right? Everything is ordained by nature. Nature just works like a clockwork, and everything has to be happening by necessity, which we know now that's clearly wrong, of course. And Voltaire kind of made fun of that. Voltaire was a deist, right? So he believed in God as though he didn't believe in the Catholic Church or something like that by any means, you know. So he said the materialists are forced to say that the material world has thought and sentiment to itself, because without God it has no way to acquire them. This thought and this sentiment would have to be inherent in all matter, as are extension, divisibility, and capacity for motion. After being led thus from doubt to doubt, we regard this proposition, there is a God, as the most probable, especially having seen that the contrary proposition is one of the most absurd. Meaning, you know, just motion of atoms, how could just moving atoms lead to an animal or a human being, right? Doesn't make sense, unless the atoms already know that they have to make a human being, but that's absurd, right? So that was his point. So we can see that even though these are both Enlightenment philosophers, they agree on these kind of things. So yes, I try to come with a diagram, which is maybe a bit too complicated, but this is kind of like we have these two things were really pretty much running in parallel through history. And you know, we have animism being at the beginning, but then things split into atomism in some sense, and the emphasis on purpose, which then flowered into mechanism versus vitalism in the Enlightenment and into the 19th century. And the interesting thing, both of them wanted to explain necessity, because everybody believed that human beings are here by necessity, right? So the mechanism explains necessity by everything being a clockwork, and the vitalism explains necessity by there being this vital force that explains everything. And this led to physics, biochemistry, biophysics, and all kinds of things, which eventually got rid of vitalism. And on this side, we eventually had evolution, which got rid of this whole purpose business. So that's where we stand now. We have reductionism, holism, and I will talk for a moment why I have evolution on this side and not on that side. And the other thing that's interesting is that all of them didn't want to have chance in their explanations, when now we know that chance is a very important player in everything. Without chance, all this wouldn't work. So atomism, for atomism to work, there has to be chance and necessity, and for evolution to work, there has to be chance and necessity. See how my time here is. Okay. I'm going back to Ernst Mayr here. What makes biology different from physics and chemistry? So I go to Ernst Mayr to find that out. I'm not a biologist. So any biologist here hopefully can put me straight if I say something nonsensical. My last biology class was in 11th grade. The rest I taught myself. I just taught myself. That was when your last physics class was. So the rest of them I just taught myself. So Mayr is a good way to start. So he has this list of things that he says that are different between biology and physics. And I put my own assessment over here. Biology has population thinking. I explain this in a moment. Physics is an essentialist discipline, so I explain in a moment what it is. I kind of agree with that. Variation, change, probability is important in biology. Physics is all